Caro?
Hi, everyone. Tough acts to follow, my gosh. But I am a people and culture associate, which is just a fancy term for human resources. I specifically work in talent acquisition, which is a fancy word for recruitment. But I work in recruiting, doing kind of full cycle recruiting processes, onboarding people into new positions at the company that I'm at. I work at Reformation, which is a sustainable women's clothing brand. We have about 20 plus stores, and we're in Nordstrom's, Net-a-Porter, different wholesale partnerships as well. But yeah, human resources and recruiting isn't very sexy and fun, but I feel like it's really rewarding work working with people. So super excited to be here.
Thank you. Super excited to have you. Stephanie?
Hi, everyone. I really wish I could see all of your faces. My name is Stephanie. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a recent graduate of UCSB. I actually graduated this past year. So like many of you, I graduated, or like many of you in this next year, following year, I graduated in the middle of a pandemic. Currently, I am a campaign specialist under the campaign and media strategy team at First Republic Bank. And I hope to meet all of you and answer all of your questions. Thank you, Biko, for having me.
Thank you. Vivian?
Hi, everyone. I'm Vivian. So I'm currently a certified public accountant and a certified fraud examiner. So a lot of my work is helping public companies, with any fraud investigations they might have, and also helping them set up internal controls, which is kind of like a fancy thing for like, in order for companies to stay public, they need to do certain things. And I kind of help them and consult them on those types of things. So yep.
You have a lot of support in the chat. Thank you for being here. Gail?
My name is Gail Batac. I'm cut out from SLO. I was also actually alpha class, so I've been out of school for quite a while. I've changed careers a couple times. So I graduated as an environmental engineer from Cal Poly SLO, and then I did consulting, and then ended up getting into tech and doing QA software engineering. And then I ended up getting my MBA at San Diego State. And went into consulting doing program management, and then went to Cisco for 10 years doing program management, and then moved into product management. So I launched the first instant messaging app from Cisco. I also launched the first Apple Watch from WebEx. And then now I'm at PayPal working on the consumer wallet app. And I've got 2 kids.
Thank you. When I asked for bios from panelists, Gail was like, which part of my experience do I talk about? Next, and yeah, Kristen.
Hey everyone, I am Kristen. I graduated from UCSB a long time ago. Part of Chi Delta Theta Phi class when I was single letters, crazy. And I am currently a senior project manager at The Real Real. I have experience in retail and tech sectors based in San Francisco, and was a sociology major. Contrary to popular belief, I did not become a social worker, a therapist, or a lawyer, which is how most social majors go, but it definitely helped me get and build a career in retail and tech, given just the ability to work with people and seeing them out and about in their natural environments. And I'd say a career highlight for me has actually been I lived in Shanghai for 4 years, and that was a crazy different experience. Wouldn't trade it for anything, and was really cool. So happy to answer questions and look forward to meeting all of you tonight.
Thank you all for being here. Since Kristen touched a little bit on majors, I guess the first question we have is, did your major help you land your first job out of college? And did it help lead you to your current job? Anyone can take that.
I can start because mine's pretty direct. So I majored in econ and accounting, and obviously now I'm a public accountant and a fraud examiner. So I think like if you are trying to get into like the accounting finance space, I do think that, you know, your undergrad should probably be in something related. But I've also seen people, you know, that graduated with an undergrad in history become CPAs in my current position. So if you really want to pivot, there's always a way. But if you want to get a head start, especially in like accounting or finance, I think it does help to have your undergrad in that major.
So I was actually a pre-med major for 2 years, and then I had a mid-college crisis, and I changed my major to art without telling my Asian parents, and they didn't like that. So I think my path has been really different, because then I also minored in arts education. And after I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, because I think it's really easy to look at my bio and be like, whoa, that was amazing, and then like took off. No, I was depressed for like 9 months after I graduated, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I didn't want a traditional 9-to-5 job, but I didn't know what business I wanted to start. So I actually started a baking company, and then I realized after a week that I hated baking. So then I had to pivot again. And it took some time to really think about what I wanted to do, which was to help people. And I thought about what really helped me, and it was a planner. So made a Kickstarter and like launched the Kickstarter, and then that was kind of the beginning of it all. So I think for me, if I think about my major and how it affects my career, like I think being an artist and an educator at the same time really led me to be a really great entrepreneur. So I think that it's really important to kind of think outside of the box of what your skill sets that you're gaining in college can like lead to other avenues and other versions of success. Because I think that if I was a pre-med major, I don't think that I would have even had enough bandwidth to learn other things like entrepreneurship while I was making artwork, because I was constantly listening to audiobooks. So I think I like double dutied my education. So I'd be building sculpture and listening to like entrepreneur audiobooks. So I think that's something that I educated myself while getting my major. That didn't directly apply to entrepreneurship, but I think it really does. So yeah, want to speak on this one?
Similar to Vivian, I also majored in economics. I don't think I mentioned it, but I'm an alumni from UCSB, part of the Epsilon Delta chapter for Sigma Lambda Gamma, but I majored in economics. And it's funny because I remember when I graduated, I was like, I'm not going to be an economist. Like, well, that's not me. And my parents were like, why did you major in economics then? But funny enough, I remember my first interview with the company that I'm at. I interviewed with the senior director, and I like happened to glance at my resume that she was taking notes on, and in like all caps, like at the top was econ. And it just made me think like, did I get an interview because I'm an econ major? I don't know. But as now that I'm a recruiter and I'm kind of on that side of things, what I've found is that your major can only help you. It doesn't necessarily take away. If you're applying to something, it can only like help you. So obviously I didn't major in human resources, but I think having kind of like that holistic view of money and how a corporation works helps. But I think, yeah, to answer the question, I don't think I majored in my major knowing that I wasn't going to be an economist or do accounting, but I think I majored in it because I'm much more creative. And I wanted to kind of fine tune my skills on like the business side and things that I, weren't able to learn yet.
Yeah, just to echo everyone, I majored in poli-sci and sociology. Back then, UCSB had a poli-sci of international relations or public policy. I know that has changed now, but I would definitely say my major was related. At some point, I debated law school and ended up doing the public policy route. But your experiences, if you're having any hesitations of whether your major will be influential in the direction, I think that I would consider more of like what skill sets are you building off of that, and then what internships or outside activities are you doing, whether it's organization or sorority related. A lot of jobs really look at that, like not just your major, but what have you done and other skill sets that you bring to the table. And even for grad school, if you're trying to switch, I think all type of folks apply to different type of grad schools. Like they don't really pick certain types of majors. So.
Yeah, and I want to add to that as someone that does employ people, I really am looking for your experience. I don't really think about your major so much as like the thing that's going to determine if I'm going to hire you or not. It's really how much experience do you have to do the thing that I need you to do in my company. So just something that if someone had a major, but then they took an internship where they learned how to execute something, I think that that would weigh more heavily. So I would suggest to do a major that you're really interested in, and something that you're interested in that you can apply yourself to learn, because the skill of learning, I think, is the more important skill than like what you actually are studying a lot of the times. Yeah.
Okay, so just real quick, want to come in and introduce myself. I'm Luana. My pronouns are she, her. I am the social chair of Sigma Lambda Gamma, and just wanted to give a really quick shout out to Vico for putting all this together and making this whole thing come together. But yeah, I will be asking the next question. Okay, many graduating seniors here or college students in general can agree that we all feel lost. How did you realize that what you were doing, either in your personal or professional life, is right for you?
I can start. I think I sometimes still feel a little bit lost. And I graduated college almost 20 years ago. And I think that what that says to me is kind of echoing on the constant learning, right? Like college is really, it's a starting point and a jumping point to figure out who you are, what you want to do. Whatever job you land after college doesn't have to be a forever thing. And know that, you know? And I think that that's where it's like, I spent 20 years with a company before taking a leap of faith to go join a startup. And when I did that, I left familiarity, and it was, in hindsight, I did that 3 years ago. In hindsight, it was the best decision I ever made, because I was complacent in a comfort zone, you know, with a company that I grew up with. And I had different roles and was able to do different things, experience different things within the company, which was awesome. But seeing what life is like outside of that company has really opened doors and opportunities for me that, you know, I've learned along the way that it doesn't matter what your title is or what your role is, as long as you're passionate about what you do and your work fulfills you, is really what life is about.
Yeah, I would second that. I was working on an episode recently, and the title of the episode was How Not to Go to College. So maybe an interesting topic to bring into this discussion. But the person we were interviewing had some really interesting advice for people thinking about going into the trades. And Angel, I wonder if you have any pushback for me on this. But his advice was, don't look for your dream job. His advice was, take your passion with you wherever you go. Like, look for opportunities and know what your strengths are and where your skill sets are, and then just take your passion with you wherever you find it, like wherever you find those opportunities and wherever you find your strengths. And I think that was really good and really interesting advice, especially right now in a pandemic when things are a little bit scary, and you know, everybody's dream job might not be available. Or like in my case, I had no idea what my dream job was. You know, I was just kind of flailing around. I knew that I liked to talk to people. I knew what I was good at, but dream job, I had no idea what that was for a really, really long time. And I think that's really, really normal. I think that if you knew from the minute you were born you wanted to be a teacher or a doctor, that's wonderful and good for you. But I don't think that's what it is for the vast majority of people, and that's totally fine. So I think the advice of just like knowing what your strengths are, knowing your skill set, and then just like finding passion in whatever place you land at to begin with is a really good thing. And then just like slowly chipping away at the things that you want from there, and just like getting a little bit closer until you find your thing, is how it worked for me.
Yeah, no pushback from me. I think like when you're talking about like landing somewhere and like making like the most of it, it kind of reminds me of traveling. Like, you know, when you grow up, I grew up in San Diego. I'm like, oh, I always want to live in San Diego. This is like the place for me. But then you don't really know the rest of the world. So I would kind of look at taking other jobs as going and living in a different place and like mentally, and seeing what you like about that job, seeing like what you like about the work-life balance of it, what do you like about how it fills you, how much do you get paid, and like really exploring and experimenting, because I could my whole life be like, I want to live in Japan, and then I get to Japan and I'm like, I actually hate it here, and I don't really think that you can hypothesize and experience until you actually experience it. So I think that I speak a lot about intuition. Your intuition guides you where you should explore, and then you can make decisions based on your experience. So I think when it comes to finding, I guess, like a home or not feeling lost, I really believe like what's meant for you won't miss you. And that means that if for whatever reason you might get laid off from a job, or for whatever reason that might happen, like just to not take it so personally. It's advice that I would give people that are entering the job market, because it's usually not about you. Because I've had to lay off people and it's been such a traumatic experience for people, but I wish they had the wisdom and the foresight that this is just the end of one not vacation, but I guess living somewhere to move to a new place with more experience and more context. So I think that you're bound to feel lost every now and again, and I think that's completely normal. Even as someone that has their own company, like I still feel that way too, and I'm figuring like, oh, okay, well, that means that I need to take out my passion planner, redo my passion roadmap, think about what excites me, and then kind of start another journey from that point.
Yeah, for me, I would say the same. I am currently in my PhD program, and most folks will either go the academic route or think tank. I keep switching my mind of where I will end up. And I think that's normal. I have just embraced that I know what topic I want to do. And I don't know how I'm going to execute that or apply that in the end. And I think being lost is okay. I also want to acknowledge that different folks are in different positions, whether it's SES background situations that you might be helping families, your own family, depending, and you might not have this ability to have a choice, right? Like for me, I ended up choosing, right after graduation, I was very thankful to have a job right away at a law firm. And I was able to defer my going into my master's program to really think through whether law school was what I wanted to do or MPP. But also I couldn't just stay at home, right? I don't have that financial stability to just like not do anything and travel for a year. And so being realistic and then being okay with that, like owning that is your situation and that you make the best out of it, and then being strategic of what your next move is going to be to get you where you eventually want to be. Even if you don't know, like trust what you're really happy about, what is your passion. And I know this is very much embedded in like a lot of the new generation of thinking of being very thoughtful of systemic racism, but I do want to encourage you not to close off some opportunities that are either policy driven or state driven or anything like that, because you could be that change that needs it. And just being mindful of like, what change do you want to make and where do you want to make it?
I can speak on this question too. Like a lot of people maybe in this call, I definitely felt lost when I graduated last year. I graduated with a history of public policy and I double majored in global studies. And I thought I was going to go in government. I thought I was going to do urban planning. I had an internship at the local Santa Barbara Council. And then literally 1 month after I graduated, I completely switched gears and realized that I wanted to do marketing. And even now, as someone who's very new to the job market, I find myself still navigating the niches that are in the marketing space. And I think that coming from Christine's point, having that passion for learning is so important when you're coming out of college and coming into whatever you're going to do next. I think being able to just take things as they come and knowing your strengths, like Andee said, I think is going to just be really important for you. And you're definitely not alone. A lot of people still like navigate, even when they're in this current state like I am. I don't know if I'm going to stay in my certain niche in my like marketing, in my marketing bubble. I still consider myself like thinking like, oh, I want to live abroad. I want to get my master's one day. And those are all opportunities for me that I can still consider.
Thank you. This actually segues into the next question that I had for the panelists. What were you most worried about in your last year of college? And if you eventually overcame that worry, how did you manage to do it? I am especially curious about what Gail has to say about this. I know that last year of college was probably a while ago for you, but I was wondering if you remember and how you managed to overcome it.
Well, honestly, my last year, I was busy. Like I founded Culture Fest, which is Cal Poly's like ASI sponsored international festival. And so I was actually more focused on like doing that, and Prop 209 was actually passing that year. So I did rallies to, to go against Prop 209. So I was actually really focused on more social justice than my actual environmental engineering major. And I feel like that gave me purpose. I mean, like environmental engineering, I wanted to kind of help save the world, whatever, but I knew I wasn't really good at engineering, and I barely got through Cal Poly. One of my professors said something racist to me and sexist. He basically told me that, that I shouldn't be an engineer because I'm Filipina, and I should actually be a nurse instead because Filipinos are so caring. So that weighed on me like throughout my entire college career, and I barely like mentally got through it. And so I didn't care what happened as long as I actually got my cap on and got my degree and I got it. And knowing that, that was basically it for me. I was worried about the fact that I probably wouldn't have a job right out the gate because I did have such a low GPA. But somebody gave me a chance. Like I was cold calling, like I got into an environmental consulting firm. Like the whole summer, like I was in San Diego, like Angel, like just like, at my parents' house and, cold calling. I mean, back then there was like no like Monster or Indeed or whatever. Like I was literally calling people. So anyway, I feel like, try not to worry about it. Like everybody else is saying, just, stick with your passion, like focus on being a good person and do your best, and things fall into place. I'm not an environmental engineer. I product management, like I've been doing this for a decade and there's no degree for it, right? Like you're going to change careers. Things are going to change, and you're just kind of like, I guess it's not really like totally be like a leaf in the wind, but when a wind blows, like try not to go against the current too much, because maybe if you have faith that, you can be like, just trust that where you land is actually going to be a good place, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing your story, because at least for me, sitting here watching all of you speak, I feel like you are all so successful, and sometimes it's hard to see the sides that no one talks about. So, and I think a lot of the students in this call really need to hear this. Would anyone else like to take this question?
I can go. My first job out of college was pretty thankless. I made a career out of folding jeans and t-shirts working at the Gap. And it was a part-time job that I had throughout college. Never thought I would make a career out of it. And when I graduated and told my parents that that was what I was going to do, they were like, wait, what? We helped you pay for your degree and you're going to go fold jeans and t-shirts at the Gap. And I was like, yep, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And again, it was, because I was not sure where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. Here was a job that, was being offered of like full-time with benefits. And once you graduate college at that time, I needed some type of medical benefits and a steady paycheck. So I took the job, and it opened, I worked as a store manager, assistant store manager, and kind of worked my way up to a store manager, and spent 5 years working in the stores and leadership, and then decided that I wanted to do something, explore something on the corporate front, and got a role as a project manager within like the headquarters operations team. And so again, didn't graduate with a project management degree or a business degree, but because of my experience working folding jeans and t-shirts, was able to kind of build experience as well as network within the company. I cannot stress the importance of networking. Like networking, to Gail's point, cold calling. Back then there was no LinkedIn. We had to do it. No Facebook. I think Friendster might have existed, and maybe MySpace. I'm not really sure. But it was really like picking up a phone and calling people, or the people that, you know, I met within work and within the organization, was just how I built relationships to be able to leverage my strengths, show what I could do, and that way, you know, help to kind of open doors for myself in other places. And then went the corporate route, and I'd always had it on my bucket list to move to live abroad. Didn't know where, didn't know to what capacity. So also dabbled in that after college. I'm like, maybe I can go teach English abroad. That didn't pan out, but you know, 5 years after graduating from college, I moved to China and lived there for 4 years. Maybe it was 10 years. I can't do math. Don't let this face fool you. And lived in China for 4 years. And that was a fascinating, life-changing experience. You know, I was working for Gap out there. And it was really cool to be abroad and just learn what life is like in a different country and how to work. Like working in a different country it's a game changer, because like the rules and regulations of working in China in particular are so different from North America that the experience was just so invaluable, and I'm so glad that I did it. I'm happy to talk to anybody about it, and if reach out to me after. Biko will share contact info.
Thank you. Go ahead if you want to share.
I'll just hop in really quickly with the other side of that story. After graduation, I didn't have a plan and decided that I didn't need one. I just wanted to move away. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to move to San Francisco. The Bay Area had been calling me since before college, so I was just gonna do that. I didn't need a job. A job would materialize. It would appear. I would figure it out. And it did eventually, but before that, I had to find a bunk bed in a big house in a hostel, and there was a lot of cup of noodles involved, and it was a hard time. It was a rough time. It was fun, but it was a rough time. So I would say to Gail's advice, yes, you should definitely, follow the wind when it catches you, but wait for the wind to catch you before you decide to go running along. The fact that all of you are on this call, I'm sure you don't need that advice, but have a little bit of infrastructure in place before you go chasing dreams. Make sure you think about it a little bit, is what I'll say from my experience. Think about it a little bit. Have a little bit of a plan was all I wanted to add to that. For my last year in college, that's what I think about. Think about it.
Thank you all for sharing. So we're going to move on to the next question, and whoever wants to go first can go first. So capitalism can make everything feel like a competition. How did you manage to keep up your personal relationships with college friends or make new personal relationships after graduation? Do you try to keep your personal life away from the professional?
I could answer that. So I graduated in 2015. I'm from Chi Delta Theta, and I'm part of Alpha Rho class. And I don't know any other classes really, but I basically see them, almost every month and we talk almost every day. So I've definitely kept my personal relationships really close. I do think that after you graduate, you kind of sift through like the acquaintances versus the people you actively want to keep in your life, and you kind of nurture those relationships and you maintain them, like if they're the ones that you want to keep, usually with people that have really, looked out for you and supported you throughout your life, good and bad. And so I'm sure you've all experienced or will experience that, sometime in your lifetime. But really, I think, in terms of keeping my personal life and my professional life separate, I find that, obviously you don't want to overshare in your professional life, like if you've been drinking a night or whatever it is. But I do think that opening yourself up to certain, relationships at work does, volunteer itself to letting people in on your life. And that does mean, the people that you engage with in your personal life, whether that be your partner, your family, things like that. I think it helps with kind of what people had mentioned before, the network. A lot of times once I start sharing that kind of information, we kind of have 7 degrees of separation. A lot of times we have a lot of common interests and people that we both know from separate circles and things like that. So I don't think you need to completely keep them separate, but do be mindful of what you do share in a professional setting, and then kind of gauge on an individual level, how close are you to certain people in your work setting and what can you share with them? And that's kind of just on a case-by-case basis, I really feel.
Yeah, I'll add to that. And just to address, I have a different perspective of that in terms of what capitalism does in competition. I think that it's really stems about insecurity and whether you're secure about yourself if you share the opportunities. Because what, I always think of what's a rejection is a redirection. And sometimes they may not feel like that, but at times it is. And I definitely have experience where I have never closed an opportunity to friends. If I see a good fit for them, even if it's the same one, I send it out just because I feel that if it's meant to be for them, then it is for them. And I know that there's so many things that go into decision making, right, of hiring and things like, et cetera. But I do want to emphasize that don't shy away from helping each other, because as a POC, if we don't have a strong network, what do we have? And so I definitely always ensure in my role to always make sure that someone a POC takes my next role. And for most jobs, I've been able to do that. And so I think that I don't think of it as a competition, but just helping other individuals be in a different place. And then in the question about, what was the other part of the question? Sorry. Relationships. When I was younger, I definitely did not share personal things at work because, right, I was so scared to not viewed as experienced if they knew that I like to go out and drink or something like that. But as I got older, I realized everyone's doing this. So I think people become more comfortable in sharing a bit, especially networking settings. Most people will drink. I would advise to just be mindful of your surroundings, because unfortunately people will develop a certain mindset of you, right? But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be who you are. You should be who you are authentically and be okay with that. And I think it's up to everyone of what you want to share or not, because ultimately it's whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, so I laughed because my company I first started hiring friends, and that's really how I built my company. And actually my COO, who's pretty much my right hand, it was my co-pledge captain in Kiteouts. So we go back 11, 12 years now. And she's turned out to be the best business asset I've ever had. And she's one of my best friends. And then also my finance manager is my big sis. So there's this question is really funny to me, because obviously they know a lot about my personal life. And I think in terms of social, I'm really open, and that's a personal choice that I have in terms of how I want to be perceived and what I want to share. And I think that that's everyone's personal choice of how they want to go about it. So I think that is something that you can meditate on and understand the pros and cons of it. What I've realized is that I'm also in a really different position because I'm the CEO of the company. So I think that it's a little different and nuanced. And I think that it's a personal choice that you can make to see how open and how vulnerable you want to be and how much you want to mix your personal work life. But trust me when I say it gets complex when you start having different relationships with different people, because there are different types of boundaries that you need to enforce and maintain. And now for me and the people that I'm close to, that I work with, I'll say okay, I'm going to take off my work hat and put on the friend hat. Like, I think that's the hat that you need from me right now. And I think that has to be really explicit, because if not, we can be working all the time, or I'll need someone to be super serious with me, or, you know, this is like a business matter and I need them to handle it in a professional way. So I think it really boils down to communication when you start operating from a place of very many different types of relationships. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, thinking about this, I've been thinking about this question a lot at work. I think just with everything going on in the world, I think we're all thinking about this question a lot. And I've just been thinking about what it means to bring my authentic self to work. And can I do that? Am I allowed to do that? And I think that's really dependent on your industry, your field, your position, how much power you have, what those power dynamics are. You know, I think unfortunately a lot of us aren't lucky enough to be able to do that. And I think what I realized for myself, and I think what my advice would be if you're just starting out, is just make sure that your definition of professional, what professionalism is and what it means to be a professional, isn't limiting your success. So like, don't be timid because you equate timidness with professionalism, right? Like, I think about my mom, like always told me, like, always be polite. And I like polite somehow became shy. It became like less extroverted than I actually am as a person, which, you know, means who knows how many opportunities I missed in the workplace because I wasn't bringing my full, you know, loud, rambunctious self to work. So that's what I would just be aware of. Just like, think about who you are, think about what opportunities you want, and just make sure if you're in a workplace and you don't feel safe, just make sure that you are advocating for yourself is what I would say. Like, it's okay to advocate for yourself. Even if you feel like you can't be who you are on the weekend, you can still always advocate for yourself is what I would say for them. That's what I have to say about that.
I'm actually curious to hear someone who graduated more recently as well for this question. So maybe Cara and Stephanie.
Yes, definitely. So I guess my perspective on it, capitalism ripped me a new one when I entered the workforce because, and I feel like this is something, especially as like a Black and Filipino woman, like my whole life I grown up to be obedient and to do as I told and to work hard. And one thing about capitalism is it will take and take and take and will give you the bare minimum. So I found myself overworking for work and just making work my whole life to the point that it consumed me. But, you know, I wasn't getting that reciprocated because it's capitalism. So I've really, the past year, I feel like I've made it a point to prioritize my personal life and my friendships. And I think for a while I looked down upon that of, you know, I always kind of looked down upon that. I was like, oh, I'm lazy if I don't take my work seriously, but that's not the case at all. And so, yeah, I think now looking back when I graduated was 2019. And from where I am now, I have a completely different mindset. And I found that I'm much more happy and much more calm and less anxious when I don't let my emails consume me and I don't let that like affect me emotionally. And I prioritize everything else in my life. That's not my work. I can still love my work and be good at it and contribute a lot, but it doesn't need to be my whole world.
Thank you, Cara. Boundaries are so important. We will now move on to the questions from attendees. We actually have quite a few. So if we don't have time to get to your questions, please just catch our panelists' contact at the end so that you can reach out to them individually. The first one that I will ask is, if each person could travel back in time and do one thing differently right after graduating college, what would that be? And also, how does each person conquer each moment of doubt that they might fall upon in life? I'm interested in Steph's answer to this question.
Thanks, Biko. I graduated in the middle of COVID-19. So the first thing I would say is I wish I could like travel, but definitely something I would do again and something I would like re-emphasize, especially during this panel. And it's something that Kristen said, is that I am so thankful that I networked to like the best of my ability in my post-grad, especially coming from, at first glance, not having a marketing background at all. It was an older kite out who actually pushed me to, helped me with my career path. And also I work under her now. And I remember messaging her on LinkedIn and she ghosted me. So I messaged her again on Facebook and she noticed like a talent that I had or a passion that I had for the field that she was in, and she really took a chance on me. So double texting really works, and it's something that I would completely value in my time as like a post grad student. I know it could be really nerve wracking, but you have all of these fantastic panelists who would love to talk to you about any of the questions that you have. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out. And Biko, I forgot your other question. I'm so sorry.
The other question is, how does each person conquer each moment of doubt that they might fall upon in life? Pretty broad.
Yeah, I would say it's completely normal to still have those moments of doubt. I noticed an imposter syndrome question in the chat, but I'm sure that'll be a question that Biko or Luana brings up later. But honestly, being surrounded by my personal relationships with Kaidelts and those who still mentor me to this day has been really helpful to me. And looking towards my own autonomy, I think is something that really motivates me. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I will ask the next question by an attendee. So this question says, how do you balance having a presence on social media without being on it all the time and letting it consume you?
I mean, I think that at least for me, I'm in a generation like I was able to live in the analog world and then grow into the digital space. And I think a lot of you that are a lot younger, man, I feel so like you didn't have that experience. So I think that it's something that the first step is really awareness, like really being aware of how much time you're letting yourself go into that space and trying your best to limit it. Because I think it's like chemically addicting. Like social media is chemically addicting, like in your brain. Like this is something that we're getting these like wins over and over and over again. We want that. And I think the way that I've curbed it is really having relationships with people and not just people on social media. So that might mean like every other night I'll have like a call with a friend, an actual phone call, those things. And like, let's talk about how we're feeling about what's happening in social justice. Let's talk about how we're feeling in terms of our mental health. Let's talk about that funny show that we're watching together. Like, I think that is social media, when it first really started, it was really to connect people, but now the connections have been very superficial. So having the intentionality to have deeper connections that are really like, hey, I'm going to give you my undivided attention for this time period, I think has been really helpful for me. Because I think that social media is just like a big festival. Like you see so many people and there's like all this stuff happening, but are you really connecting with anyone? I don't know, maybe you'll connect with one person, but that's my perspective on it.
For me, I delete apps from my phone. And if I want to use it, I force myself to go on my laptop, which being on a laptop for work all day long, kind of the last thing I want to do when I'm not working is be on a laptop. And so it is, similar to Angelica, or Angelina, I grew up without a constant social media presence. And, I kind of straddle the analog digital generation and fence. And so that's what really helps me stay grounded and stay balanced is, phone calls with friends are just as important and just as valuable as a text message. Like there's something about that one-to-one conversation. And, now we live in this digital space of everything we do is via Zoom or a Google Hangout. And so, yeah, during the pandemic, I just would start cold calling friends, like forget cold calling looking for a job, but just reconnecting, with old friends. And it's like, I haven't talked to you in months. How are you? How's everything going? yeah, and it's not just I'm following you on social media so I know how everything's going. No, I'm truly connecting with you to have a chat and have a conversation to see how you are and what you're doing and what you're up to. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think that it just depends on what you're comfortable with. And then there's some folks that have jobs that it's very pertinent to social media. So that can be an exception, like depending on what you're doing. For me, it's not. But what I do, and it annoys my friends, I do a detox every 2 months. I'm off 2 months. So I'm not on social media the whole year. I intentionally remove myself just so that I can focus on my work or other things. And I just call people. I avoid conversations on social media. Like people try to have a conversation on IG just because it's like, text me, you have my number, or call me. But there's this app that I don't know if some of you might be aware. It's only like $1.99. It's called Forest. And it locks you off from using like social media. It works for me, at least to focus. So I don't know if that might be an incentive for folks who like get off of that reward system.
Thank you everyone for the tips. The next question is tips for trying to find a job in a new field. I have a master's degree in healthcare and love my skill set. I would like to do something part-time with my skills in a new way, having difficulty branding myself. I'm curious what Gail's answer would be, because I know you hopped into different industries for a bit.
Yeah. So a lot of, well, changed careers quite a few times, probably 4 times. And every time I made a career change, I had to kind of, build on what skills I had. So for instance, I graduated with an engineering degree. So I have analytical skills. I didn't know how to do QA software engineering, but I had an analytical mind to basically figure out how to do it. And I actually didn't even get into QA software engineering right off the bat. One of my sorority sisters actually gave me a job as sort of like an engineering coordinator. So, I basically did some HR type work, and then I offered and volunteered to basically try out like the product and do testing. So, and even when I made a switch from program management into product management, I actually filled a gap. So I knew I wanted to become a product manager. I got into a role that worked directly with product managers so that I could actually learn what they did, understand the products, and understand the kind of the software development cycle. And so I kind of knew a lot about what they did. And then when they had a need for a mobile product manager, I volunteered. So I think there's a lot about, if you want something, you can get yourself close to that kind of role and then sort of get into this volunteer mode of like stepping up where there's a gap to fill in the company.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Gail. So we'll be asking the last question of the night. And again, we apologize if we were not able to get to your question, but make sure to reach out to any of the panelists if they would like to leave their contact info in the chat. So with that being said, the last question is, looking at where you are now, would you change anything from your college experience?
Nothing. I feel like, I struggled a lot in college. Like looking at it now, it might look like it, but I almost failed out of my major twice. I didn't have a job when I graduated, and I still wouldn't trade it for anything. I feel like you only get to experience that once. And it's really like a time, like everyone said, where you get to kind of find yourself. You probably have less responsibilities in terms of like paying back your student loans, paying bills, trying to find a place to live. So a lot of it is like nurture the relationships that you are building right now, see which ones you want to carry forward in your life. And that's really a main focus that I think most people should have, because I feel like once you have those relationships with people, like you don't remember all of like the exams that you took or things that you were doing like on a day-to-day basis, but you remember the feeling that the people that you associated with gave you in like those years. And that's why I think I look upon my years at UCSB really fondly, because a lot of that is just like the feeling that the women that helped support me along the way really gave me. So I wouldn't change it for a thing. Hopefully you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I would definitely emphasize have fun, enjoy yourself. I had tons of fun at UCSB. And I've been able to do well, even the times that think of things not as a straight line, right? You often hear this, like, and the end result is not really the most fascinating thing. And I think just giving yourself permission to have fun and not have to be studying all the time. I know it's hard. I do that myself. I work a lot, but don't feel guilty when you are resting or hanging out with friends. You will never get, if you're at UCSB, you're not going to get another opportunity to be with your close friends, proximity again. Like, it's just very hard to have. So just enjoy it and don't be too hard on yourself.
Piggybacking, I'll agree. Yeah, just, I mean, enjoy it as much as you can. But I'll also say, looking back on my time at school, I'll say that there was a lot of really good opportunities handed to me just because I was a student. You know, you can get access to a lot of cool things because you're young. I mean, I don't know if it's changed now. There was still unpaid internships, so maybe that was why I got a lot of cool opportunities. It might be a little different, but a professor back then told me, like, take advantage. You know, there's so many grants awarded to students. There's so much money out there at your university. Go and find it. Go and do projects. Go and make stuff. Like, this is the time that you should be doing that. And I feel like I really should have. I was wasting my time on drama that I shouldn't have been wasting my time on. You know, I was worrying about things I shouldn't have been worrying on, instead of taking advantage of all of that money that was at my university, doing, you know, things that I could have been doing on my personal development that I couldn't have. So if you still have time, if there's something you're interested in, if there's a club you want to join it, is what I would say. You know, it's not too late. There's still stuff out there. Go get another internship or project or whatever. Like, if it's out there, there's a lot of resources like this wonderful panel. You know, there's a lot of things like this. Jump on them is what I would say.
And I think with what Amalia had said earlier, there's this quote that I've been thinking about a lot, which is like, what is more important, the journey or the destination? It's neither, it's the company. And it really is who you surround yourself with. I mean, Andee and I have known each other for more than 10 years now, you know, and a lot of the people that I see that are my best friends I've known for like really long time. And I think that when you like parse down life, you really start to realize that your relationships really add like the color to it. At least that's how it is for me. You will always, I think, be able to find work. I think that if you're in this Zoom call, you're a capable person that can figure out life, and you also have a lot of privilege compared to most people on the planet. So knowing that, just being really optimistic about opportunity and knowing that you will find it as long as you feel some sort of need, which, you know, in this day and age of like technology, there's so many needs that need to be met. So I think really enjoying the journey with who you are blessed to have in your life is really, really important. And also learning how to slow down and celebrate. Because if you're also in this call, you've already accomplished so much. And a lot of times we're thinking about, oh, what's the anxiety of what's next and what I need to prove next and so on and so forth. So I think that slowing down, being able to celebrate that and just enjoy like every chapter as it unfolds is, I think that that's how I would approach it.
I'll say one last thing too. I would definitely not change anything in my college years, even the things that didn't work out for me. For example, I volunteered with kids for a year and I thought I wanted to have a postgraduate career working with kids. And then I ended up taking an internship kind of in a similar field, like working with kids. And I realized it was not what I wanted to do. So even those experiences, I feel like are so important. And it's led me to where I am today. And I look so fondly on my college memories. Honestly, I'm in UCSB right now. And yeah, I honestly just shout out to my Chi Delta Theta babies, I guess, for helping me with everything. And I hope that all of you who are on this panel take all of the things that you listened to today. I am not the greatest speaker. So thank you so much. And yeah, I really hope that you took something out of this.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, everyone. I'm sure we all had a lot of fun with you all, and I will draw a name from the raffle now. Congrats, Dana.